For years, Bishop Marvin Winans was seen as a man of deep faith and flawless integrity. His voice carried comfort, his words healed hearts, and his church became a symbol of hope for people searching for peace. Every Sunday, thousands of people would gather just to hear his sermons. The way he spoke about love, forgiveness, and grace made everyone believe that he was someone truly chosen by God. People admired him not just for his preaching, but for the way he lived. He ran charities, helped struggling families, and worked closely with celebrities who wanted to use their fame for something meaningful. Among those friends was one of the biggest names in the entertainment world, Tyler Perry. Together, they were seen as an unstoppable force for good, a preacher and a filmmaker, one spreading faith through the church, the other through the screen. Their friendship inspired many, and for a long time it seemed unbreakable. Whenever the two appeared together, people would say, "This is what divine partnership looks like." But behind the perfect smiles and beautiful sermons, there were small cracks that no one noticed. Some people whispered that Bishop Marvin had become too powerful, too admired, maybe even too comfortable with the spotlight. Others said that his connection with celebrities was pulling him away from the humble man he once was. Still, no one dared to question him openly. Everything appeared perfect. Until one evening, Tyler Perry shared a cryptic message online. "Sometimes the truth hides behind the robes we trust the most." The post disappeared within minutes, but it was enough to make people wonder. What truth was he talking about? The calm that surrounded Bishop Marvin's world suddenly began to feel heavy. It was as if a quiet storm was forming in the distance, slowly moving closer. And when it finally arrived, it would shake everything: faith, friendship, and trust itself. Before the storm ever began, the bond between Tyler Perry and Bishop Marvin Winans was something people admired deeply. They had met years ago at a charity event in Atlanta. Tyler had just finished one of his stage plays, and Bishop Winans had been invited to bless the crowd with a short prayer. After the event, they sat together for hours, talking about faith, fame, and the responsibility that comes with influence. That evening became the start of a brotherhood that lasted for years. Tyler often said that Bishop Winans was the spiritual mentor he never had. Whenever the weight of Hollywood fame became too heavy, Tyler would call him, and the bishop would pray with him over the phone, sometimes in the middle of the night. To many, their friendship was a picture of what true loyalty and trust looked like. As their connection grew, they decided to work together on something bigger than themselves, a project called the Faith Foundation. The goal was simple: help underprivileged youth through faith and creative art. The project was announced with great excitement. Churches, celebrities, and news outlets praised it as a groundbreaking partnership between religion and entertainment. In public, they were always side by side. Bishop Winans would speak about purpose and destiny, while Tyler Perry would talk about turning pain into art. Their speeches would bring people to tears. They both believed that God had brought them together for a reason, and maybe he had, though not for the reason they expected. Behind the scenes, their relationship was not just about work. They celebrated birthdays together, visited each other's families, and often shared private moments of prayer before big events. Tyler trusted Bishop Winans with his secrets, his fears, and even his finances. There was no reason to doubt him. After all, the bishop had never given him a single reason not to. But sometimes even the strongest friendships are tested not by enemies, but by silence. The silence that grows when one friend starts to see something the other refuses to talk about. Slowly, Tyler began noticing things that didn't feel right. Unexplained delays in foundation reports, donations that vanished without updates, and decisions made without his knowledge. Still, he brushed off his doubts. Maybe it's just management issues, he told himself. What he didn't know was that these little doubts were only the beginning of something far bigger, a truth that would soon put both faith and friendship to the test. For a while, everything seemed perfect. The Faith Foundation was growing fast, more donors were coming in, and people praised Bishop Marvin Winans and Tyler Perry for bringing light into the lives of young people. But soon, quiet whispers started to float around, the kind that spread slowly without anyone ever knowing where they began. Some people from the foundation staff mentioned that the accounts didn't always add up. A few volunteers noticed expensive cars being used during events that weren't supposed to have any luxury spending. At first, nobody dared to speak openly. After all, who would question a bishop? Who would doubt Tyler Perry's closest friend? Tyler began hearing small rumours from people he trusted. They told him to be careful, that something about the foundation's management didn't look right. But he couldn't believe it. He had seen Bishop Marvin help countless people without ever asking for anything in return. So he pushed the doubts away and focused on the mission. Still, once a seed of doubt is planted, it grows in silence. Tyler started noticing more details, late financial reports, cancelled meetings, and decisions being made without his approval. When he asked simple questions, the answers he got were always vague. "Don't worry about it, Brother Perry. Everything is in God's hands." But deep inside, something didn't sit right. He wanted to believe everything was fine, yet his gut told him otherwise. Late at night, while sitting alone in his office, Tyler would replay every conversation in his mind. Could the man he called a brother really be hiding something? He opened his old notebook where he often wrote thoughts and prayers. On one page he wrote, "If the truth is covered in faith, how will we ever know if it's still truth?" Days turned into weeks and the rumours refused to fade. They grew stronger, louder and more detailed until they could no longer be ignored. What started as whispers behind closed doors was now being shared in quiet conversations across the city. Tyler knew he couldn't pretend anymore. He needed to find out for himself what was really happening behind the foundation's doors, even if it meant facing a truth that could destroy one of the most trusted friendships of his life. Tyler Perry had always been the kind of man who believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt, but this time his heart felt uneasy. The rumours had grown louder, and the silence from Bishop Marvin had become heavier. Something was not right. One afternoon, while reviewing some papers related to the Faith Foundation, Tyler noticed a few things that didn't make sense. The amounts on the donation reports were much higher than what the projects had actually received. Some transfers were made to unknown accounts, and several receipts were missing altogether. At first, he thought it might just be a mistake, and maybe the accountants were behind schedule or the files got mixed up. But as he kept digging, the pattern became clear. The numbers told a story no one wanted to believe. Funds that were meant for underprivileged kids, to build art centres, fund scholarships and provide mentorship programs, were being used for something else. There were records of luxury property investments, private events, and even international trips labelled as spiritual retreats. Tyler felt his stomach turn. His hands shook as he turned each page. Every line he read made his heart sink deeper. Could Bishop Marvin really be behind this? The man who preached about honesty, humility and serving others. Could he have allowed this to happen? He decided not to jump to conclusions. That evening, he drove to the bishop's home. The place was quiet, calm and beautifully decorated, just like always. Bishop Marvin welcomed him warmly as if nothing was wrong. They sat together in the living room, and after a few minutes of small talk, Tyler finally asked, "Bishop, I need to understand something. There are things in the foundation's accounts that don't make sense. I just want to hear it from you." The bishop looked at him for a long moment before smiling gently. "Tyler," he said, "sometimes you have to trust God's plan even when it doesn't look right on paper." That answer cut deeper than any accusation could. It wasn't denial, but it wasn't truth either. Tyler felt torn. Part of him wanted to believe, but another part couldn't ignore what he'd seen. He left the house quietly without anger or argument. The drive home felt endless. The city lights blurred outside his car window as one thought kept echoing in his mind. If the man of God won't tell the truth, who will? That night, Tyler sat alone in his office, surrounded by papers and silence. For the first time in years, he didn't pray for clarity. He prayed for courage. Because now he knew what he had to do. The truth could no longer stay hidden. Days passed after that uncomfortable meeting, but Bishop Marvin never reached out. Tyler kept hoping that maybe there was an explanation, something that could clear the doubts. But silence became the only answer he received. The more he waited, the heavier the truth felt. Eventually, Tyler realised that keeping quiet would make him part of the problem. He had built his entire career on stories of pain, truth and redemption. How could he now ignore the very truth standing in front of him? So he decided to speak, not out of anger, but out of conviction. A few weeks later, he was invited to a large charity event in Atlanta, the same kind of event where his friendship with Bishop Marvin had first begun. The hall was filled with people, cameras and applause as Tyler stepped up to the stage. Everyone expected him to give his usual inspiring speech about hope and faith. But this time, his tone was different. He looked calm, yet serious. After a deep breath, he said softly, "Sometimes faith is used as a shield to hide the things we're too afraid to face, but real faith stands in truth, even when it hurts." The days after Tyler Perry's public speech were unlike anything either of them had ever experienced. The story spread faster than anyone imagined. News anchors debated it on television, bloggers shared old photos of the two together, and people across social media began choosing sides, some defending Bishop Marvin Winans with passion, others praising Tyler for his honesty. The church that was once full of music, laughter and faith now felt divided. Some members refused to believe the bishop could ever do something wrong. They said he was under attack, that this was just another attempt to destroy a man of God. But others were heartbroken and confused. They had given their savings, their time and their trust to the Faith Foundation, and now they wanted answers. Inside the church walls, whispers filled the air. Volunteers resigned quietly. Donations stopped coming in. Reporters waited outside every Sunday, hoping for a statement, a reaction, anything. But Bishop Marvin remained composed, speaking each week about forgiveness, loyalty, and how God's people must stay strong when the world turns against them. Tyler, on the other hand, tried to stay silent. The attention made him uncomfortable. He hadn't spoken to Bishop since that night. Even though he had revealed what he knew, it didn't feel like justice. It felt like loss. The man he had trusted most now looked at him like a stranger. At night, Tyler would sit in his study, surrounded by old photos, pictures from charity events, family dinners, and moments of prayer they had once shared. He wondered if he had done the right thing. Maybe he could have handled it differently. Maybe he should have waited longer. But the truth is, once words are spoken, they can't be taken back. Meanwhile, inside his quiet mansion, Bishop Marvin sat alone too. The phone calls had slowed, the support had faded, and even his closest allies had started to distance themselves. For the first time in years, he found himself questioning everything, his purpose, his choices, and the people around him. Weeks turned into months, and the noise slowly began to fade. The headlines that once screamed betrayal were now replaced by newer scandals and fresher gossip. But for Tyler Perry, the silence didn't bring peace. It only brought guilt. Every time he looked at a church, he felt a quiet ache in his heart. The kind that comes when you realise the truth might not be as simple as you thought. One afternoon, while cleaning out old files related to the Faith Foundation, Tyler came across a letter that had never been opened. It was addressed to him from the foundation's financial manager, the same man who had suddenly disappeared when the controversy began. With shaky hands, Tyler opened it. Inside was a confession. The letter explained how the manager had been misusing funds for personal gain, covering his tracks by forging signatures and rerouting payments. He admitted that Bishop Marvin didn't know the full extent of what was happening. He had trusted the wrong people just as Tyler had. The manager wrote, "I never meant to cause harm, but greed got the better of me. The bishop is not guilty. I am." Tyler sat still for a long time. His chest felt tight, his mind empty. The truth, the one he had fought to uncover, had finally shown itself, but it came too late. The damage had already been done. The world believed what it wanted to believe, and no public apology could erase the pain that both men had suffered. He picked up his phone and stared at Bishop Marvin's number. After a long pause, he pressed call. To his surprise, the bishop answered almost immediately. His voice was quiet, tired, but calm. "Bishop," Tyler said softly, "I found something. I was wrong." There was a long silence on the other end. Then the bishop replied, "I knew the truth would find its way, Tyler. It always does." His words carried no anger, only exhaustion. Later that evening, the two met at a small empty church, the same place where they had first prayed together years ago. There were no cameras, no audience, just two men sitting in the front row, facing the cross. Tyler handed him the letter. The bishop read it slowly, his eyes filling with tears. "I didn't mean to doubt you," Tyler whispered. "I know," the bishop said. "You did what you thought was right. And maybe that's what God wanted, for both of us to see how fragile trust can be." They sat in silence for a while before the bishop reached out his hand. Tyler took it, and together they bowed their heads in prayer. In that quiet moment, there were no accusations, no explanations, only forgiveness. Outside, the night was calm. The world had moved on, but in that little church, two broken hearts found peace again. Sometimes the truth comes too late to fix what's broken, but just in time to heal what still remains.